Hello and a warm collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Mr. Josh Weinberger. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I'm excited. We met the end of last year, had a bit of a pre-chat, and then fast forward, it's 2025, which just still seems a little bit like, whoa, really? All those dystopian futures that we were promised, I think are around 2025, but well, that's a different podcast for a different day. You are a long-time relationship with the show through your organization. I had your founder on probably my first podcast way back in 18. So I'm excited to kind of touch base with you, get your perspective on what's happening at Goodlawyer. So you're the COO and General Counsel at Goodlawyer. And to you, if someone doesn't know in this city, because I think they have their head in the sand, you guys are so good at getting your name out there. But we always know there's always a story to be told. Give us a quick little nose inside the tent on what Goodlawyer is all about, and let's launch off from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for the opportunity. And, you know, it's great to have the opportunity to kind of respond to a question like that because Goodlawyer's changed a lot over that time horizon that you described. So there are people, I think, in the city that know us from our really early days of being hyper-focused in the early stage startup world. And we've evolved a lot in terms of what our business is all about and the customers that we serve. And where we stand today is really finding our place as under this broad umbrella of what we would call an alternative legal service provider. But that's kind of jargon. So what Goodlawyer is all about is
Nice.
embedding lawyers inside businesses to help with their day-to-day and operational legal needs. So we help businesses with the type of legal work that they encounter as they grow, as they generate revenue, as they hire employees, as they figure out how to navigate the regulatory worlds that they're a part of. We want to be thought partners and contributors to the business, to the executive team embedded in how those businesses run. So little bit different, I suppose, than the traditional law firm model. And I think that's maybe sometimes an easier way to understand the space that Goodlawyer occupies.
Here's how we're different, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, our core focus is not to be there for sort of the giant milestone legal event that a business might encounter. So think of a big transaction, a big corporate finance event, or M&A transaction, or big litigation or dispute. That's where the traditional law firm model, where I came from, where our a few members of our team have come from in their careers. That's where the big firm model is best suited. And we're for all of the moments and all of the operations and all of the growth and revenue generation in between those milestones.
I like that. So is this, am I oversimplifying? Is this providing general counsel to like that inside counsel for an organization that maybe doesn't have the budget they need on a full-time basis, but absolutely has a need from a fractional or a on-demand basis to kind of simplify or maybe play around with terms that I'm familiar with to make sure that I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I think that's a helpful kind of reframe because absolutely the first tangible service offering that we started to develop in this world of we embed lawyers inside businesses, we help you grow your business, we help you run your business. The first tangible service offering that we started doing was fractional general counsel, which was very much patterned on the model of fractional CFO. Part-time finance leadership really was a model that we looked at to say, why can't this work for businesses at a similar stage? They're earlier in their growth trajectory. They have legal questions that are part of the normal course of building their business, but not enough to really warrant going out and making a $200,000, $300,000 a year hire for somebody to come in and occupy that seat. So yeah, this part-time CFO, fractional CFO model was the catalyst in terms of looking for analogous business models that we could fit.
Our fractional CFO is kind of the OG of the fractional world. Like so many people I talk to that are in that space, they're like, hey, we were doing it before it was cool, which is the last kind of few years. It's become a lot more prevalent. Maybe was just saying before it was cool, but that's what she said, that has been something that's been on people's radar. And hey, why doesn't this work across other disciplines?
For sure. I think they're the OGs in that space that sort of validated that model. And then I think a lot of, other professional disciplines or other skilled disciplines, whether it's marketing or growth, in our case, legal, have followed in that trajectory, and we've all caught the tailwind. And the CFO world did it before. I think the tailwinds of remote work and that type of thing have made this way more accessible and way more, say, acceptable and adopted by lots of organizations. So yeah, credit to the innovators in the finance world for finding that fit first.
I love what you just said about, accessible and like acceptable. I used to have a creative director and he'd always say, like, doesn't matter how good your idea is, if you don't have permissibility, if your audience doesn't permit you to be the thing you say you're going to be or offer the thing you said you can offer, the best idea in the world doesn't matter. I mean, this is maybe a good pivot into even just understanding the customer, but that your audience going, yeah, I can get my head wrapped around not having someone full time. Like they permit you almost to do that, which is accessible, but also acceptable. It's approved in a way that 5 years ago, people were a little more suspicious of these fractional or not having someone full time. I make maybe not to call it fractional because I don't think it was that deliberate. It's like, I need a full time person. Oh, what about a part time role? Oh, that won't work. That's changed so much, which I think only gives more value because you get that horsepower for the 30% of an FTE versus paying for a full FTE.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a few threads there, right? So when I step back and look at it in the Goodlawyer context, the business model that we're operating under today, if you were to go out and start a business, just way better fundamentally than where we were 3, 4, 5 years ago when we started out with more of a, because in that where we started was more transactional, a la carte, one-off style engagement. So when you step back and you look at it with your entrepreneur hat on, you start every month at zero and you have to build all of your revenue.
The sales grind. Because that was a model where I could almost buy, you guys were productizing going, oh, I know a company's going to need, because we're lawyers, we're experienced. We know you're going to need these 5 things and majority of companies need them. Let's make them off the shelf. Let's make them very easy to purchase. If I remember back, that's the model that I first got introduced to with Goodlawyer when I met Brett.
That's right. I mean, it was sort of an e-commerce style approach to buying and selling what I would describe as retail style, common early stage legal needs and projects and contracts that we were anticipating that if you're building a business, you're going to need these contracts, these agreements, these legal services along that journey. And then, again, to go back to the business model piece, like, well, this is way better because this is long-term relationships. It's subscription oriented. You're developing true insights on the business, longevity in the relationships, and you're compounding that revenue month over month. That's great. But to your point on the acceptability side of things, we couldn't have started here. And we started going here based on a pull from our customers. And the pull from our customers was in part, I think, the tailwind of more holistically and more globally, organizations recognizing that for key executive roles, they could have high impact and they could really make sort of meaningful growth and contribution in their teams by doing that with part-time people. Right? You could have a great person in and slice and dice how they're offering their services and still get tremendous value from it. So that was call it more the macro acceptance in the marketplace that helped us move in that direction. And so eventually our customers just started saying, we actually don't love this a la carte approach to dealing with our legal issues and problems. They're pretty regular, they're recurring. It's part of how we see our growth happening when we look forward and forecast where we're going to be next year and the year beyond. We like the lawyer that we've met through your platform. How do we make them a part of our team? And that was the light bulb. I was like, oh, there is actually an opportunity to pretty fundamentally change the business model and move in this fractional subscription-oriented direction.
When it comes to Goodlawyer as the startup in the evolving organization, I throw the word startup around. There's always that, well, when are you no longer and when does that shift? Is this a 3.0 or because the original one was kind of that retail productized services, and the second iteration, again, that I'm aware of was, okay, we're going to focus more on the startup community. Is this the third iteration? And maybe it's not as binary as I'm kind of presenting it. I think it's valuable for people to understand, like, this is the pivot, this is the adapt, this is the listen, learn, this is the grow and change. And sometimes it's like, oh, geez, I I thought you were doing this. Yeah. Until we realized that wasn't the best idea to solve our
Yeah.
customer problem. So are you guys, is this third iteration or am I missing some windows in between?
No, I think that's a fair, kind of summary for sure. And I think over that time horizon, it hasn't been quite as linear as it sounds, one
Fair
to
enough.
two,
Yeah.
two to
Yeah.
three. There's been a step backwards. There's been challenging conversations that we've had to have internally to say, you know, we thought we were building this for SMBs. This was all about improving and increasing access to justice. Now we really fell in love with this marketplace solution. We really fell in love with our peers in the startup community. So how do we orient the talent and change some of the experience and delivery model so that we're able to serve those people because they have cool problems that they're working on, cool technology that they're working on. It's a sexy space to be in. And I think over that time horizon, what we learned is we really have to be more in love with the problem that we're trying to solve as opposed to the solution. I think we got stuck
Mm.
for a while in it's got to be a marketplace model. It's got to be this e-commerce solution. And that was a bit of a challenging evolution for us to go through for sure. And as I said, it took some difficult conversations internally to start getting oriented around. We had this we had this solution that we thought was incredible when we all quit our jobs and jumped in to go and build a business.
Nice.
The problem remains the same, and that's a cool problem to keep working on to try to solve, which is fundamentally about helping these businesses, get the access to the legal services that they need to really grow, really thrive, and ultimately succeed. But the orientation in terms of how we want to solve that and approach it has really changed.
I really like, well, a lot of what you said. One thing, what thread I want to pull out of there was it had to be a market play. It had to be just, let's maybe talk a little bit about that balance between like, okay, this is the type of business we have to build because that's what a tech company looks like. That's what a company that will get a higher valuation look like. But shit, I'm seeing my customer over here and I don't think that's going to fit, back to falling in love with the business we want to build versus the problem we're solving for the customer. Like, what am I falling in love with? That's an interesting balance. And I wonder how much, and I've had different conversations, how many companies get caught up in chasing the type of business they're trying to build and at the expense of, wow, what problem are we really solving from the customer side? That's an interesting dynamic and a lot of self-awareness from a founder team to go, well, wait a second, what are we chasing and why? And is it actually going to get us there? Or are we chasing a certain model that at the end of the day, maybe isn't going to be where the most clients are going to actually come from? That's a lot of self-awareness from a corporate perspective to unpack all that.
Yeah, and it took time, right? So I keep referring to some of these hard conversations that we had to have internally. We definitely wrestled with the probably moving away from the pressure to feel like, oh, in order to be a tech company, we have to have this marketplace model. We fell in love with this short form version of, okay, we don't want to be Uber. Uber feels too transactional. We want to be more like an Airbnb for legal services, right? And Airbnb has this amazing brand. They're fundamentally in hospitality, but they're a tech company, and
Yeah.
that was the analogy that we were really excited about. And certainly, when the core founder team came together, was in the peak hype, years around startups and tech of 2020, 2021, where the narrative was like, oh, if you're smart and you have a good idea, it's easy to become a billion-dollar company, right? Look at all these examples, look at all these
Yeah.
giant valuations. And I think it was really appealing and really attractive to get tied into that narrative. And then for us, the true market feedback, the true customer feedback was telling us something different. And I would say it got a little bit easier to listen to the market feedback from our customers, from the lawyers that we were working with, as call it the market or the macro market around corporate
Changed.
finance
Yeah.
and VC started to change. And we started to say, look, we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into looking and feeling like a marketplace tech company when our customers are telling us they want this fractional model, which is a lot more of a professional services lean, and we're trying to build technology for the platform, but the hearts and minds of the stakeholder that we're really winning are the lawyers that are working with. What if we just started building some software that just helped optimize how the lawyers work and the client never needs to see it? So there are all these really fundamental shifts in terms of how we were thinking about the business that needed to unfold. And what we sold started to change over that period. What we were building internally started to change over that period. And I would say it's only now in sort of the last 4 to 6 months where I look across every business function within Goodlawyer, and everybody's, finally turned that ship and kind of come all the way around to, yeah, we're rowing in the same direction now. We're all building toward the same thing. We're all chasing the same customer. We're serving the same stakeholders.
And from an internal perspective, just talk to me a little bit about, you've obviously got the stakeholder group of your customers who were kind of telling you this, and you were listening at different times and phases. But also you've got your lawyers, which are critical because that's part of you offer, the value you're able to offer is because of them. Then you've also got your internal team. How was the change management through that process? Or was it like, hey, yeah, this makes a lot of sense? Or was there a little bit of kicking and screaming?
Fundamentally, we needed help because I think another part of the Good Lawyer story that's, I think, important to mention is that within our team, everybody is really doing something like this for the first time, right? So at our executive team level, we've got a couple of technical people, we've got a marketer, and then in our broader executive team, we've got 3 or 4 corporate lawyers, right? So nobody's truly been a founder, truly been an executive building a tech company before. So it's the first rodeo for all of us. And I think ultimately to completely make that shift and that transformation, we recognized we needed some help. And so we did work with some advisors that have been really helpful to us. One guy, Paul Sullivan, we met through Intergen. And I would say that was like step one in try to catalyze this shift. When Paul first kind of connected with us really informally and just came by the office a few times, had a few really long chats with myself and a couple other members on the exec team, just sort of watched what we were doing, and then ultimately got to the point where suggested and we agreed to involve him in a very first kind of regimented annual planning process. And that one was tough because we went basically all the way down to the studs. Like we started that day with a SWOT analysis. What are we even good at?
Nice.
How do we differentiate?
Those are humbling conversations.
No doubt. Absolutely. And we left that weekend, I think some of us feeling really energized and some of us feeling, I don't know, really challenged, even discouraged, because it's like, yeah, this is very different than the company and the vision that we originally, oriented around. There's a lot of change that's going to be required to get there. So Paul was a big catalyst for that. It helped us start moving in the right direction. The other thing that definitely helped with the change management was the success of the early pivot to fractional general counsel.
Yeah, you had a couple wins.
As he started generating revenue, as he started hearing and feeling the feedback from both the buyers, at that time it was really sort of the Series B technology company that had just raised a bunch of money, that was growing fast, had no lawyer or legal competency on staff. And as those CFOs and COOs were turning over ownership of the legal function over to one of our people, the feedback we got from them was really, really positive. So you started feeling that. You started booking revenue. You started hearing from the lawyers who are like, oh man, this is absolutely the type of work that I want to do. That started making the change management a little bit easier.
Okay.
And then, we also brought in a product advisor that helped us. And I think that was the most challenging piece. It's like, okay, we don't just want to be a professional services company and just completely move in that direction. We still want there to be a technology element that helps differentiate how we do this and helps set us up to scale and grow this big, because the dream for the founder team and our leadership team and our staff more broadly is still to build something big and have an outsized impact in the industry. So we know we need innovation and technology to underpin how we get there.
Right.
So yeah, we had some advisory on the product side as well to help us find out how we would move away from a marketplace technology model into something that started to look a lot more like a vertical SaaS for
Mm.
the lawyers on our network. So we're making now a practice management software specifically designed for the lawyers that work with us that want to do fractional work, that want to be embedded in a small number of clients, that want to run their book that way. You know, that whole shift took support from you know, outside independent parties. It took some wins along the way to ultimately build up the enthusiasm and the encouragement to stay on that trajectory.
How did it? How was the conversation? And not totally understanding, what did your investors logic? What'd your cap table look like? Did people go, "Hey, whoa! I thought we're going here"? Was that? I guess that's really where you find out how aligned you are with your investment partners. And again, as much as you want to tell or not tell, not sure what your structure is, but that's a key stakeholder group when it comes to a pivot like this.
Yeah, you're right for sure. I think it would have been challenging if we had, for example, a large institutional investor on our books,
Mm,
on our cap table, and we don't. So that's one of
okay.
the advantages in our story today. We certainly raised some capital over our life cycle. We've raised capital more broadly from friends, family, and the lawyers on our platform.
Mm,
So
okay.
people that have fundamentally put a lot of trust into us, that uh, put trust and capital into the business when it was way more uncertain than I think the clarity of the vision that we were able to communicate to them, why we're pivoting, where we're going, why it's going to make great business sense, was really strong. Um, so yeah, we definitely had more latitude than perhaps a venture backed or PE backed
Well,
business to
just a
try to go and make that
simple
move.
reality of part of your investment group or your cap table being lawyers themselves, and like there's that. How well do you understand actually what we do? Well, actually, pretty well, because I was in
Yeah,
it. I was disillusioned by the standard model. I'm also very motivated to help find a new way of doing things. So that creates an interesting sub level of, I'm motivated beyond just motivated to help this win. I want to see the world different because I don't want to do it the old way, right?
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to do
So
lawyering the way we've always done lawyering.
no doubt, and
I
I
like
mean
that.
that's an interesting transition too that I want to hit because I've talked a lot about like sort of the business model shift, but one thing that also catalyzed over that time horizon was a new mission for the business. And the way we would
Mm.
describe our mission today is to build the most desirable way to practice law.
Oh, I like that a lot. Mm.
And it's rooted in what you just described. It's rooted in the lawyer as the key stakeholder. It's rooted in understanding that if we really do fundamentally build this new, highly attractive way to be a lawyer in the modern professional world, we're going to attract the best talent. If we're able to attract the best talent, we're going to serve and win the best client engagements. And if we have great client engagements, we just keep reinforcing the virtuous circle of more great talent coming to us. Um, and that was,
Because no matter what you do, you're still a marketplace because you need both to make it work. You get too successful on one, there's a gap, and people aren't. Or the worst would be you've got the demand, you just don't have enough of the talent in the machine, which is that legal talent who are really bought into a different way.
yeah, yeah,
I
no
like that.
doubt.
I like that. I like that a lot. And just for everybody that sometimes hears those and thinks they're easy, or go, "Oh, that sounds so simple." I'm assuming there was a lot of weight and time and energy went into those, 8 words: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah,
Big time. And you
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about change management because we have a few lawyers that make up our executive team. And for us, that's highly motivating because we've lived the traditional model. We've seen the different ways. And, all of us came up in big law corporate world. Some of us have worked in-house as full-time employees. And while there are awesome, attractive aspects to those two different career paths, there are things that didn't fit for us in different ways. And so for us to say, oh, we can build this other way that's going to be transformational in our profession, and create this third path where you can be a part-time lawyer, where you can work with lots of different companies in deep, meaningful ways for periods of time over your career, and you're going to have the stability of a platform that's going to help you run that practice, but you're going to have autonomy, it's going to be lucrative, all those things. That's really exciting. But now you have to get buy-in as well from people that didn't come up in the profession and aren't as close to the pain and challenges of the legal profession. They're entrepreneurial, they want to build a tech company, they see the world in a different way. So getting the buy-in of the broader team to say, solving this problem, fundamentally making a big impact in the legal profession, is something that you can get behind. That took some time, and it couldn't actually be done just by myself or just by Brett or whatever. They had to kind of see and feel and hear the stories of the lawyers on the platform that were being like, oh man, this has changed my life.
I love it. How's if I was to chat with the industry friend, or are you looked at as friend or foe? Are you a disruptor? Are you like, these freaking good lawyer guys? Or is it like, oh yeah, you know what? Like there's a place for it. I'm just curious, the view from outside the machine.
There's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. And
that's good. That shows that shows you're shaking the nest.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and we have, especially early days. I think we shook the kind of this, I don't know, the incumbent structure like a little bit more with our positioning and our marketing, because in part, I don't think we had a really clear idea of how we would differentiate. So it was easier to just say, they do it like this, we're friendlier, more efficient, more tech enabled, right? And those guys are old and stodgy and traditional and
you kind of picked the low hanging fruit a little bit on that.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to know much about it, but if you've interacted with the industry at all, you're like, oh, that's all true. Like I get it right away, right?
Yeah, no question. And even the name of the business, right? If you meet a particularly traditional, uptight lawyer in the profession, they see good lawyer and they say, oh, well, does that mean I'm a bad lawyer? I'm not a part of your platform? It's like, no, that's not at all.
I appreciate how literal that is.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some of that, I guess, tension that just gets created. But ultimately, I see ourselves really as, I guess maybe I'll describe it this way. Every customer that we work with has an existing relationship with a law firm or lawyers in how they're running their business. And the way I thread the needle in those conversations with those businesses is to say, here's the space that we occupy. It's different than how you have been and how you should be using your external law firm and lawyer partners. And at the start of our conversation, I gave the example of the milestone events. We're not trying to touch that. We're not particularly good at it. The big firm model, the traditional law firm model, have really developed in such a way to be the best solution for large M&A, large corporate finance, large litigation, bet the company type stuff, because they've got amazing expertise and they have a leverage model that gives them tremendous horsepower to take on these like super labor intensive, super paper intensive events. What we're really amazing at is getting to know a business, understanding the commercial nuance of the business, getting involved in the daily operations in a way where one person can have a meaningful impact based on the subject matter expertise that they bring of having been a general counsel, having been a lawyer inside a business before. It's a different mindset. And so I see ourselves as occupying a totally different space and actually being sort of supplementary to the external counsel relationship as opposed to competitive to. And maybe just the last point I'll make on that is, when I worked in the big firm and all of the big firms, their main customer when they look at the corporate world is the general counsel in a corporate business, right? They don't look at the general counsel we're in Calgary, TC Energy or CNRL, and say, oh, that's my competitor. They say, that's my client. And
Yeah,
so
that's your
in our
actual
fractional,
stakeholder. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so in our fractional client or general counsel relationships, we could and should be viewed as a source of referral and client generation work for firms for the big transactional stuff, which we're not trying to touch. We're not building around.
Well, those guardrails also make you feel a little bit safer. They allow people to know where you play. You said something earlier. You said a couple of things, but the core competency that I want to pick on, you talked about building an operating model that really allows and facilitates, from a technology perspective, this type of a practice to be operated
Hmm.
by one of your lawyers. You just said something around like, we're really good at getting to know your business. We're really good at understanding the corporate nuance of how you operate. Is that something that you're building out? Is that a prerequisite? If I was to come on board and be one of your lawyers, would you then screen me for how well and how quick and how effective I'm able to understand a business? Or is that part of a discipline that you're helping train and build out? Because I heard you say it loud and clear, and I think it would be a core comp that's like, wow, I've met with you twice and you really understand my business. Like, I trust you now. I feel the value. Like, right away, we're in sync. That doesn't always happen at the same pace, depending on the individual or depending on the process.
Yeah. Uh, where we're at today, we have to vet for it. We're
Okay.
not training at it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So we're very much in growth mode, and our customers, and part of the value proposition that we offer to our customers is pretty immediate impact and ROI. So
Okay.
we, if I'm working with a technology company, for example, and that could be a technology company with 0 lawyers on staff or as many as 20 lawyers on staff. They're looking to add somebody to their legal function to help them run faster to solve a problem that they have in mind. So the customer journey that we go through is to say, look, if that's your need, I need to be able to go to my talent pool and find for you somebody that knows the software and technology space,
Yeah.
has been in-house before. So they know how to be an in-house lawyer. They know how to be a business partner. They know how to work directly with sales teams or product teams or compliance teams as a business partner, as opposed to a external advisor. So that,
I appreciate the difference of those two things. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that the learning curve for this person when we help embed them in your business is really just about learning the specific nuances and ways that the customer does it. I already know your industry.
Yeah. Got it.
I've worked
Yeah.
with, maybe I've worked with your customers, maybe I've worked with analogous businesses in your space. I get how vertical SaaS works. I get how SaaS contracts work. I get the sales
Yeah. I
process. I
don't
know
have
how
to
to
learn your
negotiate with
industry. I just have to
enterprise.
learn you. Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
How many lawyers in your, is that a metric? Do you have a certain amount of lawyers in your pool? I'm assuming you're building relationships all the time because that's a key stakeholder group.
You bet. It's the network today sits at around 200 lawyers across Canada with a little footprint as well across the US.
Cool.
It's a really important business for us, or side of the business for us. So we've now, I think, finally made an appropriate allocation of resources
Hmm.
in terms of internally. We've got 3 people that are dedicated to owning the lawyer side of our business, and that's recruiting, vetting, engaging, keeping people active, because there's some amazing candidates that we want to keep warm and keep connected to our business that we may not have opportunities for
Yeah,
right out of the gate.
there's a matchmaking aspect to your offering, right? For sure.
Huge. Yeah. The curation of the match is
Mhm.
hugely, hugely important. And that's something that I've come to own. So I kind of said we've got 3 people that are owning the lawyer side of our business. I've become the owner of the client side of the business and client
Okay.
journey side of the business, and certainly have a lot of really competent people that are helping me on
Nice.
the biz dev and sort of brokering and matching side of that to ultimately bring those two worlds together. Um, but yeah, the matching and the brokering of the talent and the customer to find the perfect fit is a huge part of the value that we bring to both parties.
Would you say is what's the greatest challenge right now? Is it more customers and getting the message out more while simultaneously making sure the talent pool is also like I'm sure they balance this. It's the scales of justice every day are tipping from one side to the other. But from a go forward, the next 6 to 12 months, what are the top what are the key things on your watch list that you're really focusing on? Obviously, expanding that's part of the business, as you just said.
So over the last, say, 18 months, the level up and maturation of the quality of talent in our network has been incredible. And not to say that we didn't have amazing lawyers before, we did, but the overall, the depth of that talent pool today is incredible. Um, I think like any business, well, maybe I'm generalizing, but from my conversations with other entrepreneurs, the toughest piece is always on the demand generation, creating new customer opportunities,
Yeah.
locking those down. The one interesting thing for us is that our business continues to evolve and the specific version of that challenge continues to change.
Hmm.
So a direction that we've been pulled in the last 6 months that creates a challenge on both the talent and the customer side is we're working with much bigger businesses, typically a 5 to 20 person legal team. And the context
Okay.
that we help those corporate legal departments is often for long-term leaves. So an employee has
Hmm.
either
Okay.
left the legal
Yep.
team or is going on a parental leave. And so they're not looking for fractional support. They're actually looking for full-time dedicated support for a 6, 9, 12, 18-month period. And that's a different story on the
It is.
talent side than what we've
Yeah.
been telling for 2 years.
Interesting. But the opportunities there, you get known for it. Like everything, that is such a, oh, how do you manage the discipline of what to say no to?
Yeah, that's been probably the theme that like carries through that entire arc. Um, and we kind of had this analogy that came out in our conversations just a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our strategic plan, but it was sort of just centered around who's your customer, and who are you hunting for? Are you hunting for elephants? Are you what space are you playing in?
Yeah.
And that continues to be a hard conversation for us. So I don't think today we are elephant hunting. I'd say the 1 to 20 person legal team is where we want to live. That means we will challenge ourselves to do those full-time, long-term parental leave engagements, and the talent side of our business will have to evolve to accommodate that.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess what I'm saying no to today I'm actively out there looking to generate this business is probably the 100 person legal team. And that
Okay.
might sound like a lot. It is a lot, but those are the very big enterprises, which are they buy these services. We know they do
Yep.
because there's a behemoth in our space called Axiom, and they serve that Fortune 100, Fortune
Okay.
500 enterprise business. Um, that's not where we're focused today. I think that 1 to 20 person corporate legal department or 0 to 20 person legal function is where we can have the outsized impact and where there's
Mhm.
a tremendous opportunity for us to keep growing.
And that 1 to 20, there's more of them in terms of volume, I would imagine, just by, you look at some of the small to medium sized business stats versus the big mega enterprises. I'm assuming though you're covering a few, you're trying to move the needle on a few things, teaching them that this is available. Where I'm a big firm with a 100 person legal team, we're used to bringing in fractional talent. So there's different challenges, right? Of like proving that it works for them, maybe getting them more used to the model, creating this possibility. It's a different customer journey from an education perspective. One, it's the
Yeah,
relationship and getting in the door. The other is probably some elements of teaching them of even what's possible.
yeah. Getting this story out is hugely important for us. I think by adopting this lawyer centric mission, being the most
Mm,
desirable way to practice law, it does give us a unique positioning on the marketing side of things and storytelling side of things. We can talk to both our customer and our talent at the same time with same general messaging.
yeah.
They're all lawyers, senior legal counsel inside a 20 person legal team at a tech company, for example. they could be a buyer in a couple of years. They could be one of our lawyers today or in a couple of years, right? So I'm happy
Yeah,
to.
I appreciate how you can play both sides of like you're literally playing to what their their value set is, or them wanting to even get to know you and work with you, thinking that later that might be a different path for their career. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so just
Yeah, yeah.
educating and telling the story and making sure we're on the radar of as many stakeholders in that world is important to us, and it captures both sides of that. So that's a nice advantage for
Mhm.
us today, for sure, with the lawyer as a buyer.
How much is the value proposition enhanced because you are also a lawyer versus a bunch of tech guys running around with a solution, which does happen from time to time in certain industries.
I think it helps. I think it helps build trust in the
It
process.
feels like it would to me from the outside. Again,
It helps the lawyer, I think.
armchair thought on my part. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that we're continuing to have to overcome because to, if we forecast in the future and we want to be 5 times larger than today, I'm like, I don't really see a world where we've got a 20-person customer success team that's completely staffed by
Lawyers.
lawyers. Like that seems really hard
Well, no, because you're gonna want to
to
get them
scale that way.
into your stable of available lawyers. You won't want to tie them up in sales. You will want to get them out and actually let them practice law in this new, more desirable way. Mhm.
Yeah. So we
Yeah,
need to
that's
build
fair.
a process that I think incorporates, this concept of a technical expert or a sales engineer at various stages that
Yep.
helps to build the trust and helps ensure that the right kind of technical competencies are in the room so we can translate the customer's problem into a talent solution. I mean, that's
Mm.
fundamentally what we do. We want to listen, we want to ask good questions, we want to draw the challenges and issues and problems out of our customer, whether that's somebody in the executive suite that we're talking to or the general counsel at a company. Understand that, distill it down to a business case or narrative, and then translate that into, based on what we heard here, you're facing this challenge, you see this opportunity,
Mhm.
we can help you with this talent solution. And we will need some technical expertise from lawyers in our internal team to help tie those two pieces together.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're doing a great job of that right now by giving our BD teams and our customer success teams support from subject matter experts like myself and Pauline and Chad and Brett at various stages in the process to
Mhm.
make sure we knit that all together.
As a customer, I'm just curious because this is the model that we use as well at Clearmotive, and often in marketing, there's many hats need to show up to the table, and we often will have our point person who is kind of that fractional, often CMO. But if we need to bring in our digital media guy, we need to bring in our creative expert, we need to bring in our customer experience or product person, we will also fraction in that talent under kind of the similar agreement. In your case, it sounds like I get access to a specific individual and that's who I work with. Is there opportunity to bring other people in if the talent requirement or the skills requirement or subject matter expert varies in the course of a 6 month or year long relationship?
Yeah, that's a super interesting picture that you've painted, and it's something that we've done in small doses so far.
Mm. Okay.
The fundamental model for us is, yeah, you're going to get access to one dedicated person that is the owner of the function as a general counsel or as a
Okay.
dedicated individual contributor if they're joining a larger legal team.
Mhm.
Specifically, if I look at the fractional general counsel model, by definition, those businesses are fast growing and have not yet devoted significant resources to building a legal function.
Okay.
So I think there's tremendous opportunity. Again, if I look at you gave the marketing example, look at the fractional CFO or finance
Mhm.
world as a model. I think there's a tendency to think that as that business grows, the obvious piece is to turn my part-time general counsel into a full-time general counsel because I just need more of them. But I think if you're doing a good job in discovery and helping to ask the right questions of that business and help to really tease out the challenges and issues that they're facing, you might learn that you can actually solve this problem better by continuing to work with a part-time general counsel and then building your legal stack underneath that. So that might be, let's add a senior legal counsel, or let's add a paralegal on a full-time basis to do more of the day-to-day, more of the admin, more of the organizational type of work. Let's add a, so I think there's a creative way to really be involved in the design and implementation of that whole legal
I
function
could
over
see
time.
the consultative aspect of like, hey, we want to build this out, but we've never built one before. Give us some guidance, help us out. Like I could certainly see, and by that point, you've become the trusted partner. So you're, that's the old joke. You've made it as a consultant when they ask you a question that's maybe totally alongside of what you do for them, but they trust you. So I'm assuming those questions come up very frequently in the legal realm.
No question. And, it's not to say we aren't doing that today, because I had a call yesterday with a customer that was an existing customer that was very much along these lines. He is the only general counsel it's a global technology business. They sell software in the automotive industry. And he's saying, look, I already have a person from Goodlawyer. They're helping me with this area of subject matter expertise in the world of kind of privacy and enterprise compliance that we're dealing as we move into new jurisdictions. I love her. So now I trust your business because that relationship is so strong, and the impact that she's having on me as a general counsel is really felt and appreciated. I don't think deploying her onto sales contracts and some of the admin work and that type of thing is the right next move for me. The rates don't align. There's more volume there. That's not going to make her happy in terms of the level of work. So help me now solve this issue, because I want to continue to free up more of my time. But I also want my sales team to feel supported and my product team to feel supported.
That feels like that's an awesome call to get. That's the call you want to get.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. And when you think of it, I go to like the Goodlawyer business model. It's like, if we can continue to grow and embed more lawyers with our existing customers as they grow and as their problems evolve and as their business gets bigger, having that compounding growth from people that already trust you, that have already bought from you, it just like makes it so much easier for that demand gen, right? Because you've got a fundamental relationship there already.
Well, you're now moving to this role of not even customer success, but you're like success architect. Oh, okay, great. I hear your problem. You know what? I've seen this before. I know somebody. Let me introduce you to them. Like you're really helping them architect out into the different areas, and it's not just piling more work onto that same person and really being able to diverse it. And that's the perfect world. Like I have this problem. I trust you. Help me solve it. You really can't ask for anything better from a sales perspective. And sales almost diminishes what you're doing at that point, in my opinion. Not that I have anything against sales, but you're actually solutioning with them and making their life better. That's the perfect. There is no better spot to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it is sales, right? Like that's.
Of course it is. I know. And that's why I'm not trying to demean that's anything wrong, but you're actually now becoming the solutioning partner, which is a really good salesperson.
Exactly. Like I think people have, probably people that haven't done it, right? Or people that haven't lived it or felt the impact of a really powerful sales function in an organization have this view that, like it's smarmy, you're tricking people, you just want to. But really, I think what I've learned over the last couple of years that really effective sales is fundamentally about having this consultative approach and having this discovery mindset and being super curious with your customer. Because great sales is about, I think, really helping them diagnose their own challenges, diagnose the cost or implications of those challenges that they're facing, and identify opportunities to correct it and change that pattern and interrupt it with solutions. And if we aren't the right solution, and you go back to this story of like the space we occupy versus big firms, I'm very comfortable saying, look, we've got to a problem and we understand that it's having big costs for your business. That's not the problem we're best at solving. So let me point you in the direction of,
I really respect that. I respect that a lot.
Somewhere else so that you can figure this out. And here are the hints of problems that we do help solve. So, when you feel this, I'm your guy. But for now, let me point you at one of my former colleagues.
And being able to say no, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, founders, salespeople, we have a yes addiction. But
Yeah.
that discipline, then it becomes a distraction, and knowing where your core competencies lie and where that guardrail happens to sit, and to be reviewed over time. But as you're working to build that out, those no's are so you're often defined more by what you say no to than what you say yes to. I don't know. I think my business partner said that years ago. We were in a growth phase, and he's like, you know what, this year's going to be like saying no, and I'm like, it feels uncomfortable, but I think you're right. He was right. He
Yeah,
was
no doubt.
absolutely
That's a
right.
good line. Yeah.
I've repeated it many times, and I occasionally even try to live up to it. But that's another story. I really appreciate just the honesty and and the humility in which you told the story. Like, yeah, we were here, and then we evolved to here, and now we've landed here, but we're still open and we're learning and it's growing, and that consistency to how do you keep the dream alive? Like, how do you keep the energy? Because there's got to be days where this is a real founder leadership to founder team question. Those days when you're like, okay, I guess we're gonna pivot again. Like, how do you keep that energy alive? And is it just having that mission, which you guys have now pivoted to? Mhm.
I mean, candidly, it's been tough. So the most sort of open and yeah, the most like open admission that I can make is that this entrepreneurship world is way harder than I ever imagined. Um, It's a lot of hubris that sort of went into the original decision to leave. I mean, a job that I was really good at and a job that was really lucrative in a lot of ways that was
Mhm.
a good fit for me, but ultimately, I just saw that it wasn't the world for me as a full-time practicing lawyer, really in any context. So I was in a big firm, but it could have been full-time in a business, being the general counsel. That I don't think that would have been for me either. Um, but this journey of building a business is really, really hard. So how have we kept the energy alive, especially as things have not worked? We've had to pivot, we've had to evolve, we've had to take on these, listen to our customers and make significant pivots and convince team members to come along with us. The mission orientation has helped for sure. I think another important piece, and I'll probably get this wrong, but there's sort of the Daniel Pink sort of framework of how do you find motivation in the
Mhm.
workplace. So there's sort of that idea of you want to have mastery, you want to have some autonomy, and you want to feel
Yeah.
like you're having, there's sort of a purpose in what you're doing. The mission of the business helps with the purpose orientation. Then on an individual level, to be able to step back and say, okay, as hard as this is, why did I get into this place? For myself, I wanted to develop skills outside of the narrow silo of you are the technical expert in the world of M&A and corporate finance. So my skill set is like super broad based. Today I'm being challenged in all these different areas and having to develop a really big toolbox in a way that I didn't get exposure to in a more specialist field. So being able to step back and reflect on those personally, I think helps reset and maintain the motivation during some of the more challenging pieces. And and then one thing I'd just like give a shout out to Brett in this context is he was really adamant about a year and a half ago in bringing his brother in as a consultant to work with our team as essentially a in-house fractional psychologist.
Okay.
And so he first started working with a small group of executives in our team as kind of an executive coach, a psychologist doing one-on-one work with them that evolved into a kind of bi-weekly or monthly group therapy session with a few leaders. And that little pilot
I
proved
appreciate
to be
calling it
really
what it is. I
successful.
appreciate you calling it out as what it is. And I have huge benefit. I believe I'm a big advocate of the outside perspective that
Mhm.
something like that can bring to a group. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, and it was a pilot because I wasn't part of that initial group. I was not an early adopter of, yeah, I think this is going to be impactful.
Mhm.
But the evidence from the people that participated was that it was having a big impact. And we've since rolled it out to everybody. And now very staunch supporter. I meet with Sean every 2 weeks, and it helps reset. It helps maintain, the personal perspective on where you're
Yeah.
at, the bigger, broader perspective of where the business is at, why you're making that investment. And then we have these group therapy sessions with the executive team that are guided by Sean that frankly help clear the interpersonal stuff that
A
can
little airing of grievances.
diminish the motivation at times,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think, when you get into the dynamics around what's the difference between a work group and a high performance team. And oftentimes a bunch of people get bolted together, crazy goals and unrealistic deadlines, and it's called high performance, but it often isn't. There isn't clarity. There's baggage that people don't know what their contribution is. Like some of those dynamics around high performance. I think what you guys are doing personally, my own bias, is leaning a lot more towards the outcome being a high performance team than just a bunch of people jammed together with unrealistic deadlines and short budgets.
Yeah.
And we worked our ass off. We're high performance, but everyone's burnt out, disillusioned, disenfranchised. Home life is a mess. That's not high performance. It's not.
Yeah. Well,
That's really
that's
cool.
awesome
Thanks for
to.
sharing that, man. Thanks for sharing that.
I appreciate you validating that because that is the direction and the vision that we have for ourselves as a business is high performance. A lot of our executive team, myself included, come from sports as a really
Mhm.
key part of our formative years and journeys. Through childhood to adulthood, and uh, both Brett and myself, we played soccer together when we were kids at an elite level, at a youth level. Played and captained our respective um, university varsity soccer
Oh, okay. Sweet.
teams.
Up to the university level. Right on. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, for each of us, that was kind of the cap of where we are going to go. It's never going to be a professional career, but there's lessons of high performance, lessons of high performing teams that come from those that we want to replicate in this world. And there's a fine balance of trying to, you can't just take the locker room and make that your business, but
No, because there's
there's a lot of, I
there's a
think,
lot deeper than that. Absolutely. But I like where you're, and the curiosity of looking at different high performance teams. Sports is easy to pick on. It's funny. I just wrote an article and I'll share it in a couple of weeks here, but I spent a day with the Canadian Snowbirds. And
oh,
I got to
cool.
go behind the scenes and I got to sit in their debrief and I watched high performance at a level that I was like, oh, this is what a high performance debrief looks like. This is a level of extreme accountability and personal ownership I have never seen in a corporate environment. And part of the theme is like, get curious about other places high performance exists and what can you learn from it. And that was one of the ones that just came up for me. And I forced myself to sit down and kind of write it out to realize what I actually saw. It was pretty cool. But the theme was get curious about where high performance lives and find out how you can bring that back to corporate. And, it's not locker room towel snaps. It's so much more than that, right?
Wow, that's cool. I don't want to spoil your article, but kind of ask, was there one thing or one activity that group went through that really stood out to you as being like, wow, I had my eyes totally opened here?
100%. It was twofold. And I kind of realized it as in writing it. It was a level of personal accountability and humility. These are 20-year-old fighter pilots, like not the
Mhm.
group you immediately think are going to be humble about their own performance. They're going to be like, I'm awesome, bravado. I watch them go around the room and they sit beside who they fly beside. So if you and I are flying and if we're doing exercises together and we're playing 9 and 10, we will sit in chairs that have 9 and 10 on the back. And when they got to that individual, the individual was like, I did this wrong. I did that wrong. I made a mistake here. This is my brief for next time. This is what I'm going to work on. Then the next pilot would say, this is exactly what I did wrong. And I was just like, and using terminology, they didn't fluff it up. I made a mistake. I did this. And I watched them go all around the room and do that. And I said to the chief warrant officer, I said, hey, is this like, I've never seen the level of just raw ownership, no ego, like the level of humility. But what I quickly realized is it didn't matter who you were as an individual. That was the culture. And anything other than that was unacceptable. Because back in the late 80s, they had a fatality. And they identified after in the whole kind of post, as they do in aviation, they do a really deep dive. And it was the two pilots never took accountability and always blamed the other guy. And eventually they had a mid-air collision. And he goes, from that day forward, we will not leave this room until everyone has owned up to anything that they did wrong, because that's the pre-flight briefing for tomorrow. And it was the power of a culture of humility over you having, didn't matter if you were humble or not. You either showed up in that world or you didn't get to be part of that team for an extended period of time. And it blew me away. And every time I think about it, I kind of catch a little more nuances, but it was a
Mhm.
choice that they made. And he said, we won't leave the room. We'll ask anyone who's a non-pilot to leave, and we will stay in the room until we get to the bottom of why those two beside each other aren't admitting who owned up to what. Because if not, somebody could actually die. And man, that hit me. That stuck with me in a big way.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a super powerful story and anecdote, no question. And that must have been, yeah, pretty powerful to witness that and
Oh, it was
see
a
how
privilege. What a privilege.
culture has really developed over time, right?
And then I got to go for a ride with them, which was it was a very cool day. I lucked out.
Oh, no way.
I lucked out. Yeah, I met somebody at a dinner with some Air Force guys I knew, and he's like, "Hey, we need some marketing help. Would you be interested in trading a little, guidance for a plane ride?" I was like, I jumped out of my seat. I was like, "Are you
No
joking?
kidding.
Like, let's do it." So it took a couple of years to get it together, but I flew out and spent a day in Moose Jaw with the squadron, like from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, and got to do everything with them and watch how they manage themselves. And I was like, "Oh, I've never seen high performance like I just saw." In 1960s aircraft, like working with like almost subpar equipment. But that was part of their pride, because look what we can do with a 50-year-old plane. Like, so Canadian, so Canadian from that
That's
perspective.
super
They're like, yeah,
cool.
we'd love new, more powerful aircraft, but this is what we got. And we're known for what we can do with what, not subpar, but very, like, he'd be like, it's like going to the racetrack with a 1950s Porsche. You feel everything and it's probably going to break, but that's okay. And you're pushing it to its limits in a formation set with 8 or 9 other aircraft. It was very cool. Anyway, sorry, I'm going on a weird tangent here, but if anyone's still listening at the end, they're clearly bought into our dialogue.
No doubt. Well, I'm super intrigued by that. And I just think there's so many lessons to be learned when it comes to leadership and when it comes to high performing teams and when it comes to trying to define what that means for your own business,
Yes.
to look outside of, for us, we got to look outside the legal profession. We got to look outside of um, the startup world. I love sports. That's an amazing anecdote from the Snowbirds. There's a really cool podcast that I listen to with, and I'm not even a giant like F1 fan by any means, but Toto, I can't even remember Toto's last name, but he sort of runs.
Toto Wolf, he runs Mercedes. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Runs Mercedes, and
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
guy's
I only know these characters because I watched the Drive to Survive during COVID, like most people did.
right. Yeah, exactly. And
Otherwise,
so,
yeah, I
so
did.
did
Otherwise, I wouldn't know anything about Formula One either.
and a little bit of a tangent, but he just had a little story of his first day joining Mercedes and coming into kind of the lobby, I suppose, and he's going around about to meet the team, and at reception, the magazines are kind of not stacked properly. They're a bit of a mess, and there's dirty coffee
Ah,
cups in the
yeah.
sink on his tour, and it's like all of these things. He's taking mental notes. All of this stuff is going to get changed, pretty much on day one. We've got a culture of high performance, and we need to be able to see that everywhere. And maybe that's not right for your particular business or particular team, but to get exposure to ways other people live that and other organizations and teams live it and embody it is a good way to have your mind open to how it could be applied in your
You
world.
you said the word curiosity. It's one of the things I camp out on. It's what are you doing to stay curious and stay open minded to that? Like, huh, never thought that, and seeing it for what it is sometimes, and whatever filter you're using. But I love being in environments like that, or watching, seeing that in a little documentary, but picking up the thing that wasn't really what the documentary was about. Be like, huh, noted. Okay, yes.
Hmm.
How you go into the bathroom in a restaurant. If the bathroom's dirty, ooh, the kitchen's probably not great. Like, it's amazing, those things that tell bigger stories, right? I think
Yeah,
I think we're
yeah,
just
no
going to do
doubt.
a whole other podcast on leadership and teams and self awareness and all the things that go with that, which is a passion for me. Because as leaders, this starts with you, and then
Yeah,
I'm
likewise.
going to make a team this way. Well, how are you? Because that's kind of how your team is going to mirror often, whether you like it or not, right? Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I believe in that strongly. I'm really proud of. I talked about the mission that we rolled out. We've rolled out corporate values, and for me, the most important one that I am really stoked on is the set the standard, which really is a
I
reminder
like that. I
to,
like that a lot. Mhm.
it's a reminder to me, it's a reminder to everybody in the team, but setting the standard in the day to day, how you show up, how you conduct yourself and everything that you do, it really does kind of percolate through the organization. And I think that's kind of aligned with what you were sharing.
I did a podcast recently with Craig Senek from More Investments. He's the chairman there and just a fantastic individual. And he told a story about, it was all about their brand and culture and how they kind of went from $1 billion to 90 billion in funds under management. So you immediately get people's attention when you throw out a 990 in front of the billion number. But he talked about one of their stories about an individual traveling as part of their team and came back with the sign, the do not disturb sign, because they had a changing room in their office that didn't have a lock on the door, and people would ride their bikes, they'd change and people would walk on each other. And he goes, it was kind of a joke, but also kind of uncomfortable. So this individual took a do not disturb sign from a hotel and he brought it in and it was a big joke. He hung it on the door and he goes, then the founder came in and he's like, where did that sign come from? Because it had the hotel's name under it. And someone told him the story and he goes, did you pay for that? Like, did you buy that? He goes, well, no, it's just a sign. He goes, that's not our values are honesty. Our values are integrity. And we work in the financial sector. We don't take things from other businesses. And it's one of their origin stories that they tell about what living their values actually means. And so like even how easily I can repeat it to you. And I heard the story once and that individual called the hotel, they laughed and they said, no, totally. Like, thank you. The amount of things that get taken, like we're not worried about the sign, but that wasn't their values. And the owner called it out and they made it a thing. And it's now become one of their origin stories in their onboarding. Set the standard.
That's really cool.
Set the standard.
No doubt.
And the power of it, like stories. I heard that one time and I was like, that I will remember that story, the impact of like, I love set the standard. That's great, man. That's really good. Josh. Okay.
That's
all right. We're an hour in. So do we either launch into a whole new episode on culture building and leadership, or do we put a pin in it and circle back for an episode 2?
Yeah, I think that's the right move.
I see the next hour the next hour unrolling in front of us right now if we keep going. It's funny. It's like the old days of going to a good after party. You had to go through the first party to hang out with the people at the after party. We're getting into the after party podcast right now, territory. Josh and Tyler are now comfortable with each other, so they're willing to talk about the real shit.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'd love to continue that conversation. It does sound fun, but yeah, we'll have to get that on the calendar for a future time.
Josh, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being honest and just showing up and being willing to have a good conversation. It is literally my favorite thing to do. And my audience happens to enjoy it as well. So like, as I joked earlier, it justifies my habit of having good conversations with smart people. If somebody wants to reach out to you, are you a LinkedIn guy? Do you have any, like, in all the ways to communicate, do you have a preference?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn's the easiest way for sure to get in contact. I'm pretty active on there. Our business is very active on there. We believe in trying to tell our story pretty transparently, and that's the medium that we've chosen to do it. So if you're in my DMs, you shouldn't get missed. I'd be happy to chat and respond, and come take it from there.
I appreciate that. And obviously Goodlawyer, you guys have a great site. It's clear. I was on it when we first chatted, even looking at how you guys are talking about fractional and how you're laying it out. And how I heard a joke the other day, or not joke, but clear communication is kind and unclear is unkind. There's a lot of websites out there that might be considered unkind. Yours wasn't one of them. I was like, oh, this is pretty clear. Like, I chatted with you and I went after. I'm like, oh, this all lines up. And as a marketer, that means a lot to me when the story holds together. I take Beautiful. It. I'm like, oh, this story doesn't connect. Fail. It makes me sad.
I lived the period of time where, I kind of gave the story arc of pivoting the business, and there was a painful period when the website did not tell the story. It wasn't aligned with the conversation that we had today. And when you feel like you're having deals blocked or conversations confused by your own website, that was not a fun place to be living.
I don't think there's a founder, owner, or leader, especially in the early stage or in the smaller stage, that doesn't fall drastically out of love with their own messaging and website at some point in time. My website is currently in that territory. We're about halfway through our new website. I go to the old website. I'm like, oh, it's not wrong, but it's so not right. So, anyways, that's I'm living in that quagmire right now. And as a marketer myself, it's kind of embarrassing. But we got a little bit of the shoemaker's kids kind of scenario going on here. We've got holes in our shoes, but no excuse. Josh, good to get to know you, man. That was a really good chat. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.